Hear me? Yes. Hello, welcome, good afternoon. Let me step over here. Before we start this afternoon, just a few housekeeping items. First of all, goes without saying, turn off your cell phone. We don't want a cell phone ringing. That would be not very polite. For those of you that have any questions afterwards or questions while you're here, please just go down the hall and you can set up a meeting, a one-on-one meeting with one of our technical experts. We're fortunate that where we're having the conference, our corporate headquarters are just down the road, and so we've had all of our technical experts here at the conference to answer your questions. So please reach out and set up some time. They'd love to talk to you. Second of all, if you haven't downloaded the app, you need to do that because we want you to fill out the survey so we can improve on what we're doing. And also, you know, there is that contest for a $200 Amazon gift certificate. So we want you to do that. I don't think I've missed anything. So I'm going to go ahead and note that we'll have a Q&A session, so sort of hold your questions till after the presentation. And we are very pleased this afternoon to have Rajesh Chandrashekhar from Cisco, who's Director of Operations, and Anu Katari, who is the Documentation Manager, and they'll be presenting this session today on reimaging content delivery.
Thank you much. All right, folks, how are you? Good. Excellent. Post-lunch session, all excited, downtown San Francisco. That's why it's all boarded off, so you guys don't get distracted. It's a beautiful day outside, but I've been told because I haven't had a chance to step out either. But we have something exciting here this afternoon. Now, for a second, I'd like you guys to imagine that you're a network engineer, right? You are tasked with connecting the world. You know, you've got switches, you've got routers, you've got IoT devices. You're putting them together to form a massive, complex network, and you need information. The information you need is in siloed islands of content, discombobulated, monolith states. Would you like to use that kind of information? Probably not, right? And that's why we need to reimagine how technical content is consumed. And that's the topic of today, right? And so I'm Rajesh. I'm responsible for technical documentation for core products for all of Cisco globally. And Anu Katari is a chief architect we're going to be showing you what we've built to improve that customer experience using MarkLogic database. Mike made me say that. So no, it is true. All right. So today what we're going to go through is what our customer's journey is, right? End of the day, and if in the keynote you heard, it's all about the outside in, the right side left kind of thing, right? We'll walk you through what our customer journey is, and it's from a content standpoint, and it is not a single pane of glass today. Then we'll specifically call out some of the problem statements that we saw, which helped us or pushed us over the edge to kind of say, hey, we got to be a little more creative and find solutions. And what we did when we planned this out is Anu and I said, let's literally put the cart before the horse here. Let's show you how it works and what's out there, and then peel the layers of the onion and go through some architectural kind of questions depending on your appetite at that time, rather than walking through the whole cool stuff and then rushing through the demo. So we're going to do the demo at that point, and we're going to end with our learnings and then into Q&A. So that's the flow. Sounds good? Yeah. All right. Excellent. So this is the customer content journey, right? So you can look at it as 3 discrete steps: before, during, and after. And this is, again, not very particular to what we've done at Cisco, but what is particular is each of us deal with content. So my group, technical documentation team, generates certain content. There's a marketing team that generates certain content. There's sales. There's services. So each of these pieces, I'm not going to go through each of them, but each of these different groups provide different types of information that get consumed by customers during different phases of their implementation, right? For example, if you're in pre-sales, you're trying to learn about certain things about a product. If you're during implementation, you need to get into the configuration, troubleshooting. During sustenance, you want to go back and look and say which releases are coming out, where are the bugs. So for each of them, there are different groups. So this is like a test to make sure you guys are awake. We're going to be blinking this. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to lose it. So we are right here. I'm going to try and tweak the cable as we go in case it's a...
I tried it.
OK. We're still good. So if it's either tech docs, they were trying to color code here. If it's tech docs, then it's the installation, release note, config guide, different kinds of guides. So the point I'm trying to make here is, if I'm a customer going in and using a product, I don't really care which group in a company or Cisco generates this documentation, right? So ideally, in land of utopia, we want to have a single pane of glass where if a customer goes into a technical document such as a configuration guide, the related information from services, what kind of bugs there are or what kind of trouble the field has seen, all of that information should be coming to you in a single pane of glass, like you're looking at, this is infamous. You go into Facebook and it tells you about what you browsed yesterday and if you want to buy a soccer ball, even though you didn't plan for it. So you should be able to tell what the customer is looking for by bringing that information, right? That's the journey we're heading towards. We are in the beginning of the journey, and in fact, with the Content Hub that we're going to demonstrate to you today, we will show you that there are certain elements of bringing this different content together. We would curate them, but we would own the technical content, and that's the model we are approaching with. So from a problem standpoint, right, the key issue we really went head on with is findability. I mean, Google has completely, improved our lives, I must say, on a personal front, but on an expectation from a customer, now everybody expects all searches to happen like that and very accurate, right? And it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it does raise the bar. And what we found was most customers are unable to find the technical content when they want it in the way Google provides it, right? And in Google, you don't have to give context. It's got these algorithms going. So one of the biggest challenges we want to make sure we find is, if you come to a Cisco landing page and you look for a technical content, you should be able to find it. Today, customers are going to Google to search for a Cisco document. That's the wrong thing to do when you're trying to capture customer mind space, right? And so that is one thing we wanted to address, because if you look at the number of support cases, right, these are massive numbers. That is a bad customer experience. It's a cost to us. There's no win-win there. The other one is our content. We've been in the business for about 30 plus years. We are very pervasive in the networking industry. You can only imagine the number of hits we get in terms of looking for content, and the numbers are staggering. And lastly, from a customer's productivity, if you're in the business of setting up boxes, and if you're not getting information in time, it's just going to slow your own work schedule, right? It's a productivity, again, a customer satisfaction thing. So we kept this findability as our primary goal of what we want to do to improve customer experience with technical content. OK? That was a champagne bottle opening, guys, just to say, yes, now is the time. It's like we're almost there. It was all planned. Thank you. So this is where we're going to get into this quick test drive, if you will. And Anu's going to walk us through what the Content Hub is all about and why we are so excited about it. And I'm going to drive, and she's going to navigate.
OK, cool. Hey, everyone. So this is the home page for the Content Hub. The URL is fairly simple, content.cisco.com. The main thing is that it is integrated with the Cisco single sign-on, which means we're able to track who our employees are, who our partners and customers are. So it's integrated in that way. So you can see that my user login has been identified there. Cisco products, if you go to cisco.com, for example, the products are organized very hierarchically. right? So in order to find a router, you have to at least navigate 3 or 4 levels. It pretty much reflects how our organization is, to some extent organized in many cases. So we've kind of created a very flat structure. The user doesn't really care what type of a router he is. All they've invested is in a particular XYZ type of a router, right? Which is why you see, is my mic on?
Yep.
Okay. So, which is why you see that there are platforms and there are solutions. Platforms are the products, the hardware that you buy that runs the software, that has the software loaded in it, whereas solutions are bringing several products together and providing a deployment, right? So, we have fewer solutions than there should be. That should be longer. We're just still ingesting the content. But if you come, it's a direct search there. It says enter your search here. So you can go there, free form, ask any questions. What is segment routing? Tell me about, BGP protocol, anything, right? And it will take you to somewhat a Google type of experience. Okay, so this is where it is. What it's pulled up is to, again, bring up the platforms, all the software releases that particular search contains. Then you have the various technologies where that term, or you may find that content available, right? We can go back. You can further filter. You can keep going. This is somewhat an Amazon experience. I want to explain it. If you go back there, again, you choose your product. We'll see what happens. You can choose maybe 9,000.
Okay. Catalyst?
Yeah, Catalyst. Just say search, or you can continue to further. This is very useful to our customers because it tells you what releases are supported for that platform. It's essentially showing you a hierarchy for that particular platform, right? So here is where you jump into the content. Click the button there. Yeah.
Sorry?
So, let me just.
Why
isn't that visible?
Oh, it's a scaling thing on the monitor.
Okay, all right. So this is your content you've got there. What people like is that toggle there on the right-hand side. That lets you jump from one release to another, right, in a click of a button. In regular pages, you either go back to Google and say that, no, I want this content in this release. Often users don't really know which is the latest release and so on. So we have a little more control of how to present content, what to serve them. We want to push the latest release, right? So there's a little more control here. When users don't select a release, we simply populate the latest and the greatest release, right? So with a toggle of a button, you can move from one topic to another in a different release. The other feature that most customers like is the custom book. Our books are, really large. If you take one protocol book called BGP, right, you'll easily get a 5,000-page, document served for you. But what this lets you, this custom book, is to navigate to the topics that are of interest to you, right? You can go from one BGP book to perhaps a BNG, to OSPF and whatnot for this platform and build your own book and share it with your team. Everything is online. All our content is free for everybody. So we let users kind of create and model their own books, shape it in the way that they want, and then save it to their dashboards or just share it with others. The other use case we've heard a lot about is in training teams. They think that to create training modules, they've found this feature very, very useful. So what else do we got? So the right hand is populating the recently viewed content, top searches. People are looking for somewhat a related search kind of a thing. Then you have the posts. So what's happening in Cisco.com content is we put out the content out there, but then there are several ways that you can use that particular feature, right? We just provide a framework, but then partners and vendors go out there and build, their own solutions for a particular framework. So how do you establish or maintain the life cycle of the content now that it's been deployed and so on? So we allow engineers and experts to come in and contribute, a crowdsource to the content itself, right? So you can write a troubleshooting note a technical node, a topology information, and if you submit it, it gets tagged to IP multicasting topic, right? So notes is another cool feature. In the post, what happens is your content becomes public. Anybody who has logged in can now access and see what others have written. The notes is different in the sense that you can make notes. It's like a sticky note. You can just keep it and come back to it for later viewing, right? So write a little note and then come back to it. You could have IP addresses, just information needed for your organization that you can put there and then save it. It goes to your dashboard, or when you come to this page, it's available as a little icon on the right, right? You can also give feedback to us, as in customers can feedback, this information is not helping me too much, there's missing information. And what we're doing here is to create more visibility into how we're receiving their feedback, that we have received it, we're working on it, we'll get back to you. So that sort of a feedback life cycle has been implemented in this solution as well. So we call it a hub because I think you saw the content journey slide, right? I think there is no value in content if you serve it up as in absolute. If you can serve it at the right stage of a customer's journey, I think that's when content has transformational value, right? Which is why we have, very contextual links available from this page. For example, if we're on the 9400 Catalyst series, right? It can take you to the download software for that particular platform. But if you go to Cisco.com, that's again the navigation, and you get into the loopy ride. But here it just takes you bang to the content. The same with the bugs, right? All bugs, PSERs that we have that we want customers to know about is available from this page to the direct landing page. Have I missed anything?
The dashboard?
Yeah, the dashboard. So all the things that we did now, created the custom book, the posts, and the notes are all available in the dashboard. If you log in, you come in, and then all of that is available here, right? So the custom book that we just created, the notes that...
It's not showing up.
Did you save the custom book?
I did.
Okay.
Tim's around here, no worries. Tim, you there? Yeah.
It's still spinning. I'm guessing based on not hitting that link before, we're having some network issues here.
It's nice to have right here.
It works like a charm. I wonder what's going on. Yeah. So you could have accessed the custom book, the PDF, in many different formats from this page. Any posts written by others are available here. The notes also, just the notes that you created is available here. Favorites and feedback, right? So I think that's pretty much the demo.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, thoughts?
So all this information is in XML and stored in your MarkLogic database? Is that
Not really. So we have both XML as well as FrameMaker, an Adobe offering. Adobe FrameMaker, in fact, Word and PPTs and all kinds of stuff, right? But to truly get the power of all the things that you see, we're able to do a lot more with XML content than we are with FrameMaker. One example is the custom book, right? It's available only for XML, because for an XML, you can get to a very granular topic level, which is what the customer is anyway doing, right? Selecting topics. You can't do that in Frame because that's an assembly of several topics. So, but most of the content, is in XML. FrameMaker is about 30%, and then you have a scattering of different type of formats.
is the XML in data format?
Yeah, it is.
So we are kind of moving away from Frame, but there's so much legacy. There's less ROI in converting. But what we're being very conscious is any new information, new content we're creating, we want to stay with XML. You know that.
Yeah.
So what was it about MarkLogic that made this more successful than other technologies?
we have a slide for that?
So we do have a slide for that. So maybe we asked you, so it's okay for you to ask us back. But we'll come to that. Maybe you want to just go through this slide just to call out.
Yeah, so all the features that I just talked about, right, it lets you explore the products that we have in a very flat, unhierarchical, way. Then it also gives you insights into what each platform provides, right? Like the releases, the technologies. Is this technology available in that product? Helps with the decision for customers. The post, the notes, custom tools and resources are where, I showed you how you can go to the download or the bug search toolkit. There's the analytics, which I won't be demoing. It's essentially hooked up to Google Analytics, and you can, users can, at least we can look up what the user patterns are, what is the most viewed content, and how many people are liking it, what is the trends, and we're able to draw insights from that, right? And single sign-on gives us the benefit of, being plugged into the Cisco database and leveraging that.
So it's open to everyone. So if you guys want to do a demo drive yourself, you should be able to get to content.cisco.com and try it out. If you don't have the Cisco sign-on, possibly then you won't get custom book features. The rest of it you can still play around.
There.
Question.
All right. So I'll not walk through everything, but in terms of capability, right? What we found was that, we had when we started this whole project, we had about 80,000 pieces of unique files, you could think of it. And these are not topics. These are, what just gets URLs. You could think of these as 80,000 URLs of very dense information, lots of tables, lots of, images, and so on, right? But we felt that we needed a system that can easily, take the migration and also give us flexibility in terms of bringing in new products into the system. Cisco acquires a lot of companies, right? So in order to bring in new companies into our infrastructure, to give us the ability to kind of bring in that and then ingest it into our database and then bring it up for in a Cisco sort of a portal, right? I think that was a big deal for us. The other thing was, we're still double publishing. Content goes to both Cisco.com as well as Content Hub. But we did not want to introduce overheads for our writers, or technical writers, in terms of workflows, to do certain steps and workflows for Content Hub and then some other for Cisco.com, right? There's just a very seamless workflow. You do things, you prep your content up for publishing, you click a button, and then the MarkLogic workflow takes care of the rest of the the publishing. Then I like the technology part. I want to touch upon the technology part. The market segment agnostic, right? We could have gone with a system that was built for content management and so on, right? We went with MarkLogic because it was not built just for content, right? Your market segments range from insurance to retail to whatnot. So we wanted things like, the custom book to not, this is just an example. We did not want things to be built into the workflow of the writer, right? So when you bring in these systems, we were hoping that, the expectation was that we take away the workflow from the writer and allow the customers to drive their own, content, right? So that was one big requirement for us when we were doing the evaluation. Support, I think our requirements ran into a few hundred pages. We started the development roundabout in October, November of 2016. And late February, we were live. This portal that you just saw was live. It included the discovery, the ingestion, the integration with the IT teams that was needed. Everything was brought together in the span of 5 to 6 months. So that was important for us to go live as quickly as possible.
Pick up some speed.
Yep. Yeah, quickly, the architecture. This slide, I haven't created it. I'll do my best to explain it. There are two workflows, right? How do you get the content to the MarkLogic database? The content comes in through Astoria. It is a CMS system. That is where the writer checks in all the content. We have a Kafka, an Apache Kafka file server system that stores and manages the content and moves it to the MarkLogic database. So that's the downstream part of it. Upstream, an external user accesses the URL. They hit the many DMZ servers, which then polls the internal servers. All of those DMZs are again Apache servers, light LAE servers. They hit the internal servers. If credentials are needed, the LDAP server it connects to the CCO. CCO is Cisco connection something. And then that's where you get the single sign-on credentials, and then it goes through OAM, which then sends that request to the MarkLogic database, right? So that is how credentials are handled. All of the data is present here. It's, I think, hosted in a a 3-node clustered environment. And what else? I think most of the development has been done in jQuery, JavaScript, and then requests happen through regular HTTP server requests. Yeah, that's what I think I've got.
Okay.
Okay. So where do we want to go with the Content Hub? I think we definitely want to look at it, as a documentation as a short form and a long form of documentation, right? We heard about Google serving up very smart snippets and so on. So I think that's one area we're looking at. How do you respond to queries as opposed to bringing up long documentation? The requirement for long documentation is going to stay, but how do you bring in more specific responses to user questions, right? It's the same, and how to get a little more granular, just answer the questions, be very, very crisp in the responses, and of course, personalization, right? To see how, you want to personalize the experience to the type of user they are. If I'm an enterprise user and I have certain sets of products, how do you serve up content in a way that delivers to that particular customer? That's what we're looking for. We have the repository, we have the user information. Now, how do you connect that to the content, right? That's the personalization journey we're looking at. And then there's also, the customers love the custom book, but they also want to go from one product to another, right? Be able to build custom books from a Catalyst to an ASR to an NCS and so on. And I also think that the custom book needs to evolve a little more in terms of, just being a little more intuitive, understand the intent that the customer is coming from, and then create the custom book rather than have the customer actually select the topics, right? A little more intuitiveness, I think, can be built into the custom book. So those are the things we're looking forward this year.
So one quick call out on the chatbot, right? Just a quick shout out to Amit, who's sitting over here. His organization is helping us. It's a challenging thing. I don't know how many of you guys are trying chatbots. It's a very challenging thing to do it for unstructured information. For databases, which are very structured, employee address, it's a lot easier. So we're fighting that challenge together and partnering using the MarkLogic data that comes out of it. So if you guys have later on thoughts on your experiences on chatbots, love to catch up at the back of the room. Okay, we're gonna pick up some steam to go through from enough time for Q&A.
Right. Yeah, so some of the challenges, the ingestion, though, was easy from a technology perspective. The preparation for it was humongous, simply because it was manual, right? We did not build in automated, discoveries into the system. We manually went through documents, tagged it to metadatas, and then did the ingestion. That was a very labor-intensive, a bit error-prone. We had to revisit the same things, do some republishing, and all of that. So that was a big challenge. Search enablement and directing customer traffic, right? It continues to be a thing that an opportunity for us, for sure. A lot of customers use Google to come to the content, right? So what we've done now is to enable search organically in the Cisco.com. So when a user comes in and searches for content that is in the Content Hub in Cisco.com, Content Hub results come up in relevancy, in ranking. We're hoping that over time, Google indexing also picks up, and then Google searches direct customers to our page rather than Cisco.com, because remember, we're doing double publishing, right? So we're still fingers crossed, a bit early days. So we're hoping that Google will pick up and we'll get the numbers and the people moving here to the Content Hub. I think we have strong navigation, right? I think we've got that very right. But in terms of improving search, answering questions rather than pulling up documents, there's a great opportunity. We're hoping to deploy chatbots, and I think the Cisco.com has certain SLAs in terms of how the time, the few seconds that it takes to access the content. There's certainly room for us to up-level and become on par with Cisco.com. It's not been consistent in our test results. Sometimes it beats Cisco.com, sometimes it doesn't, but the true test would be when all that Cisco.com traffic gets diverted to Content Hub, how would this product sustain? That's an open question, right? Yeah.
And we'll pick up speed.
Yep.
Go to the next.
Yep.
So I'm going to just run through a couple so we have enough time for Q&A. This slide was primarily to indicate that we have to partner with internally as well as externally to make this happen. Because when you look at the experts like MarkLogic or the IT strategic partners inside, we can't go rogue. It has to be on an existing system and dovetail it. Just a quick snapshot there. And this is the last slide, and then we'll jump into Q&A. So I think the first point is amply clear. It's customers rate us on their experience. It's no longer the product. It's about how they consume the product. And the second one is about, there's only so much we should have the NIH syndrome. After a point, you really want to look at experts and make them a solution builder. And again, the internal part. The next bullet's on the software sustenance, right? It's what I appreciate with MarkLogic was it was initially Tim's group helped us come out with this entire solution. But end of the day, it is software. Software has bugs, software has features. So they did connect us to a more affordable, Mike, I'm looking at you. You can't afford you. So it's more about connecting us to a more sustainable, affordable set of folks who can keep this going, put some features through, and maintain it. Because it is about a database and getting us up and running, and that's where we were. The last point is about this has been our journey. Content does rule, but it did take a lot for us to kind of step outside the mold. There is, when something's working okay, and Debbie's here from the same organization, in terms of inertia to change and move away from what works, it takes a lot, but it's a bold step. But I think that's the only way to get customers to utilize and experience what we got. So with that, I'm getting a 5-minute warning there. So we've got Q&A.
Yes. On? Can you all hear me? Yes. Oh, here we go. A brave person to be first. There you go.
Hi. First observation, you've been live with the system now for a little over a year, yes?
Yes.
Okay. How has your traffic grown relative to that which comes in from Google?
Very light.
Okay. One more question, if I might then. Cisco, well known for acquiring new companies. Next week, a new company shows up. It's got 20,000 pieces of documentation. What's the process for assimilating it now, and where do you want that to go in the future?
Right. No, I think it's a very pertinent question because we are notorious for doing that. So we've taken the stance of letting the acquired company still reside in their comfort shell because of many other reasons like customers and ingestion. And the process of migrating is tricky. In fact, we're trying that with one of our recent acquisitions. Recent, I'm talking about a 12-month window, recent acquisition. It is not easy, but we'll have to, what we found is ingesting into MarkLogic isn't that difficult. It's more about changing the experience customers have with the interface they're used to. That's the bigger challenge.
Any more questions? Think about it. This is your opportunity to ask
This
Cisco
one
their
here.
deepest, darkest question.
Get the mics away so the others can hear you.
So in your architecture diagram, I saw you're still using team side or any kind of content management, or the contents are just managed within the MarkLogic, or you're duplicating the content in both places?
No.
It's in the MarkLogic.
It's in one place.
So the technical writer is publishing the content directly into MarkLogic. What is your process for? So we have seen the external facing application which is content.cisco.com, right? But for the technical writer, when they have to publish the document, do you have some internal admin screens or contributors who may be creating those technical documents and uploading, or how do you manage or manage the life cycle of the entire document, right from the creation till making it available for the external clients?
Right.
Yeah, I can take that. So the technical writer will commit the content to a single CMS repository, right, which is Astoria. That is a corporate-wide CMS that is used for technical documentation teams. This is not just our team. Across Cisco, we use that particular CMS. So but the only additional thing they do is to add additional metadata in order to provide such an experience in terms of faceted search, custom book, right? They need to go through a few additional steps to add the metadata. And once that's done, it's a matter of clicking a button. Then the custom applications take over, right? Basically, I don't know if I'll explain this better, but the MarkLogic is regularly pinging the Kafka queue for any new publishing events or requests that have come in. If there are, it grabs that content completely oblivious to the writer, right? It just grabs that content, does the processing, and then pushes it out to the content hub.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. I saw that you had an Oracle database on your chart there. I wonder when you were going to get rid of that and replace it with something better.
We did have it.
Not to put you on the spot.
So the Oracle database we showed there, want to make sure. That was single sign-on?
Single sign-on, yeah.
Yeah, we
I
don't.
think that's going to stay.
This is like,
Yeah.
That's for the important stuff. So.
Single sign-on should be happening from the LDAP level, right?
Right.
Oracle is for auditing purposes.
Yeah.
OEM, yeah. Yep.
But yeah. Yep.
Great presentation. Earlier, you spoke about I think content at the snippet level, or sort of a smaller level than a whole document. Could you sort of describe the ideal end state you're trying for with that?
Sorry, what's it?
The snippet-based, topic-based publishing. What's the ideal size and how we would publish it?
Right. There's no ideal size, right? It's the question that the user asks. What is segment routing is, 5 pages versus how can I configure segment routing on OSPF? That is 10 steps versus what is the airflow pattern in a Catalyst 9400? The airflow pattern is from back to front, period, right? So I think that's where to set the threshold is where, it's still in pilot stage. The challenge lies there. What do you show as the most meaningful and relevant content to the question that's been asked, right? I think that's where, we're trying out technologies. I hope I answered the question.
Anyone else?
That's a very relevant one, though, because a lot of our content is in very large books. And so we got to find that right answer. It's not a single answer, but I saw a hand go up there.
By the way, this is very cool. Awesome. How do you manage links when customers create their own books? So for example, when you're taking parts of things from a bigger book, making my own book, how do you manage the links between various sections? Because in a larger book, they happen through your tooling. But when I'm piecemealing it, how do you carry the links?
Yeah, so let me try to think. I think as long as content exists in topics, right? What we're doing is, I think Venu is in the group, and he's our Cisco IT headman who led this. So I think what MarkLogic does is to ping our content rendering system. I don't know if this is the answer you were looking for, but the CRS essentially responds to a writer who is trying to build a book, right? But what we do with MarkLogic is we don't, store all those large pre-created books in our server at all. It's on demand. So because these exist as topics, MarkLogic hits the same CRS system, the same content rendering system, and then sends another request to create the book that's been requested by the user. And it is stored in the MarkLogic database. Correct, Venu?
Look.
Okay.
So it's a dynamic, so it's not static, right?
Right.
Cool.
Anyone else?
That's a wrap.
Other questions? We are getting the look.
Thank you to Rajesh and to Anu. We appreciate
Thank you,
it.
guys.
Thank you.
Been a great audience. You can take the rest of the day off. I can say that? No?